Listen well, my children, and I will tell you a story the ground itself still remembers. In those days, there was a compound at the edge of the town, old but strong, like a tired ox that still worked hard. Many tenants lived there, people with dry hands and big dreams. Over them ruled a landlord called Mr. Bamadel, a man whose heart was harder than baked clay. He loved money more than peace and power more than fairness. Each morning, he walked the compound with his chest high, counting doors, counting people, counting control. The tenants feared him, yet they greeted him with forced smiles. Among them lived a quiet young man named Cunnel, who sold vegetables by day and read books by lantern light at night. Nobody knew how far his dreams could reach, but the landlord soon noticed something stirring. Mr. Bamadel had one rule: no tenant should rise higher than him. If someone laughed too freely, he questioned it. If someone dressed too neatly, he suspected pride. One evening, he saw Cunnel returning late, his clothes dusty but his eyes bright. The old man felt a strange heat in his chest. Why is that boy always smiling? He asked himself. Soon, rumors reached him that Cunnel was saving money, planning something bigger than selling vegetables. In that compound, hope was dangerous. Mr. Bamadel increased rent, without warning, and added fines for small things: wet floors, loud greetings, cracked buckets. The tenants grumbled in whispers, but fear sealed their mouths. Cunnel paid quietly, yet each payment felt like a stone placed on his back. Still, he did not stop dreaming, and that was what angered the landlord most. Now hear this clearly: wickedness often begins with fear. Mr. Bamadel feared becoming small. He feared being forgotten. When he learned Cunnel attended free night classes in town, his fear turned sharp. Education makes people stubborn, he told himself. The next day, he called Cunnel out in front of everyone. He accused him of late-night noise and disrespect. Cunnel bowed his head and apologized, though his heart burned. That night, the landlord locked the compound gate early, hoping Cunnel would miss class. But Cunnel climbed the low fence, tearing his shirt and his palm. Blood stained his book pages, yet he smiled and kept walking. From that moment, Mr. Bamadel swore silently. This boy would not succeed under his roof. The landlord began his work like a spider spinning slow webs. He disconnected Cunnel's waterline, claiming unpaid bills. He delayed fixing the leaking roof over Cunnel's room. During rain, water dripped like tears onto Cunnel's bed. The other tenants watched, afraid to help. Hunger grew, not just in the stomach, but in the heart. Still, Cunnel endured. He woke earlier, slept later, and shared his food with neighbors when he could. At night, he read aloud to himself, words of hope filling the dark room. The old elder in me tells you this: ignorance confuses wicked people. Mr. Bamadel expected tears and begging, but Cunnel gave silence and strength. That silence began to worry him more than shouting ever could. One market day, good news entered the compound quietly. Cunnel had been selected for a small government business grant. It was not much, but it was a door. He told only to neighbors, warning them to keep it secret. Secrets, however, have weak legs. By evening, Mr. Bamadel knew. His face tightened like a rope pulled too hard. "Under my roof," he hissed. That night, he wrote a notice and pasted it by Cunnel's door. It said Cunnel must vacate within 1 month for rule violations. The compound froze. Cunnel read the notice slowly. His hand shook, but he did not cry. He folded the paper and placed it inside his book. If success was a road, the landlord had just placed a wall across it. Cunnel sought advice from elders, traders, and teachers. Some shook their heads. "Find another place," they said. Others warned him. This landlord is dangerous, yet Cunnel felt time pressing him like hot sun. Without an address, he would lose the grant. He returned to the compound heavy with thought. Mr. Bamadel watched him from his balcony, smiling thinly. The wicked often smile before harm. Days passed. Repairs were refused. Electricity to Cunnel's room went off. Darkness followed him like a shadow. Still, Cunnel kept his papers safe and his spirit alive. One night, an old woman tenant slipped him food and whispered, "Do not give up. The ground you stand on is watching." Cunnel nodded, not fully understanding, but holding the words close. As the eviction date neared, the landlord grew bolder. He mocked Cunnel openly, calling him big dreamer with empty pockets. Laughter followed, forced and afraid. Cunnel felt shame rise in him like smoke, but he swallowed it. On the final week, Mr. Bamadell summoned local officers, men who enjoyed easy money. He planned to throw Connell out before sunrise. But fate, like a quiet drummer, was already beating elsewhere. The business grant officials scheduled an inspection visit to Connell's home address. Connell did not know this yet. Mr. Bamadell did not know at all. The elder in me smiles when I remember this part, because wicked plans often run faster than wisdom. The night before eviction, rain fell hard. Roofs rattled. Gutters overflowed. In Mr. Bamadell's room, water leaked onto important documents. He cursed loudly, yet no one came. Meanwhile, Connell sat awake, packing his few things, praying softly. At dawn, as the landlord prepared his officers, a government vehicle entered the compound instead. Neighbors peeped through curtains. 3 officials stepped out, asking for Connell. Confusion spread. Mr. Bamadell rushed forward, anger hiding under politeness. "There is a problem with that tenant," he said. "He is being removed today." The officials frowned. "This is his registered address," one replied. "We must inspect his living conditions." The landlord's smile broke like dry bread. They walked to Connell's room. The leaking roof, the broken wires, the dry tap, everything stood as witness. Connell explained calmly, showing receipts of rent paid and complaints ignored. The officials took notes, faces growing hard. Neighbors gathered, courage slowly waking. One spoke, then another. Stories poured out like trapped water. Illegal rent hikes, threats, disconnections. Mr. Bamadell shouted, but his voice sounded small. The compound that once feared him now watched him tremble. The lead official turned to him. "You have violated housing laws," he said, "and obstructed a registered beneficiary." Mr. Bamadell's knees weakened. In trying to block one man's success, he had exposed his own rot. Justice does not always shout. Sometimes it whispers and signs papers. The officials ordered immediate restoration of Connell's utilities and suspended the eviction. They also issued a notice for full investigation of the landlord. Word spread fast. By evening, the compound buzzed like a disturbed hive. Connell sat quietly, overwhelmed. The old woman smiled at him. "The ground spoke," she said. Mr. Bamadell locked himself inside his room. Fear, once planted by him, now grew in his chest. For the first time, power slipped from his fingers. That night, Connell slept deeply, rainwater no longer dripping on his bed. Outside, thunder rolled, as if the sky approved what had begun. Days later, officials returned with more authority. They questioned tenants, checked records, and counted violations. Mr. Bamadell's wealth could not cover his lies. Fines stacked like heavy yams. His name appeared in reports. Business partners stopped calling. The compound changed. Tenants stood straighter. Greetings became real again. Connell resumed his plans, using the grant to expand his vegetable trade into packaged goods. Children watched him with new eyes. The landlord watched too, from behind cracked curtains. Shame followed him like a smell. He tried to threaten again, but his voice lacked teeth. When power leaves, fear follows. The elder in me tells you, this was not the end, only the turning dot. As Connell's small business grew, opportunity knocked again. A cooperative invited him to present his work. He needed space to produce more goods. He requested permission to use an empty store in the compound. The landlord refused sharply, though the store had been unused for years. Connell did not argue. He rented a space outside instead. Customers came steadily. Praise followed. Mr. Bamadell felt bitterness burn his throat. Each success reminded him of his failure. Meanwhile, tenants began reporting him openly. Repairs he once ignored were now demanded. He spent nights pacing, calculating losses. Wickedness, when exposed, becomes a heavy load. He began to understand too late that blocking others had blocked his own peace. One evening, Mr. Bamadell fell ill. No tenant rushed to his door. He lay alone, sweating, listening to the compound's distant laughter. In weakness, memories visited him, his youth, his first building, when he just struggled. Regret knocked softly. The next day, he sent for Connell. The compound held its breath. Connell came respectfully. The landlord's voice was low. "I did wrong," he said, words tasting strange. "I feared your rise." Connell listened, silent. "Apology is easy. Change is harder." Connell replied gently, "I only wanted a fair place to stand." The landlord nodded, tears hiding in his eyes. For the first time, he saw Connell not as a threat, but as a mirror. Change did not come like rain, but like slow morning light. Mr. Bamadel reduced unfair rents and fixed broken pipes. Some tenants doubted him, others watched carefully. Connell continued his work, now mentoring younger traders. The compound healed, step by step. The landlord sold one property to pay fines and debts. Pride cracked, but humility entered. He began greeting tenants by name. Children no longer ran from him. The elder in me says this: true punishment is not pain, but understanding. Mr. Bamadel understood now what his fear had cost him. Connell understood that strength can be quiet. Their paths crossed often, no longer as enemies, but as lessons walking side by side. Months passed. Connell's business employed to neighbors. Laughter returned fully to the compound. One afternoon, a ceremony was held. The cooperative honored Connell for perseverance. Mr. Bamadel attended quietly, standing at the back. When Connell spoke, he thanked the compound for endurance and learning. He did not mention the landlord by name. That silence was heavier than blame. Mr. Bamadel clapped with wet eyes. He had tried to block success and instead became its witness. The ground that watched before now rested. Children played freely. Doors stayed open. And the elder telling you this smiles, because justice came not with fire, but with truth. Years later, when gray touched Connell's hair, people still told this story. They spoke of fear, power, and quiet strength. Mr. Bamadel lived more gently until his end, no, not for his cruelty, but for his change. The compound stood stronger, its walls carrying memory. And so, my children, remember this: when you try to block another's light, you cast a shadow on yourself. Let the ground watch you kindly. When old age bent Connell's back slightly, he gathered children in the compound each evening. He spoke slowly, like someone measuring words with care. He told them how fear can turn a man into a bully, and how patience can turn a boy into a pillar. He never painted himself as a hero. I was afraid too, he would say. But I refused to let fear choose my actions. The children listened, wide-eyed. Some had parents who once suffered under the landlord's rule. Now they saw proof that tomorrow could be kinder than yesterday. The compound had become a small school, and Connell was its quiet teacher. One season, heavy rains returned, harder than before. Floodwater threatened the old building. This time, tenants did not wait for orders. They worked together, clearing drains and fixing weak walls. Mr. Bamadel joined them, his hands shaking but willing. Nobody mocked him. People remembered the past, but they also remembered change. As they worked, Connell watched with calm pride. The compound stood firm against the rain. When the storm passed, laughter followed. It was clear now, unity had replaced fear. What power once destroyed, cooperation rebuilt. Visitors often asked why the compound felt different. Tenants would smile and say, "We learned early." They spoke of a time when success was punished and hope was dangerous. Connell's business now supported families beyond the compound. Yet he lived simply, never forgetting hunger. Mr. Bamadel collected rent fairly and fixed problems quickly. His name no longer caused whispers. The elder in me notes this truth: reputation is clay. It hardens only when you stop shaping it. Both men shaped theirs again, with effort and humility. One quiet evening, Connell found Mr. Bamadel sitting alone, watching the sunset. The landlord spoke softly. "I used to think control meant strength," he said. "Now I know it meant fear." Connell nodded. They sat without bitterness. The sky darkened slowly, peaceful. That silence was healing. Some lessons require loss to be learned. Some hearts need breaking before they open. The compound lights came on one by one, steady and bright, like second chances. As years rolled on, the town used the compound as an example. Officials spoke of it during meetings. "This is what fairness can do," they said. New landlords visited to learn. Tenants elsewhere found courage. Stories travel faster than people. Connell smiled when he heard this. He knew stories plant seeds. Mr. Bamadel listened too, his head lowered, grateful for mercy he did not earn easily. The ground that once watched in silence now watched with approval. When sickness finally took Mr. Bamadel, the compound gathered. There were tears, not from fear, but from respect. Connell stood quietly as the elder of the place. He spoke of a man who fell into darkness and chose light late, but sincerely. "Let us remember both," Connell said. "The warning and the lesson." People nodded. Forgiveness settled gently, like dust after sweeping. No chains remained between the living and the past. Life continued, as it always does. New tenants arrived, young and hopeful. They heard the story often. Connell reminded them, this peace was paid for with suffering. Guard it. The compound rules were written clearly now, fair and firm. Children played under repaired roofs. Water flowed freely. Lights stayed on at night. These simple things became treasures. Wickedness had once stolen them, but wisdom returned them. On Connell's last birthday, the compound surprised him. They painted his old room and placed a wooden bench outside. He laughed softly, overwhelmed. Sitting there, he watched children run past, free and loud. He whispered thanks not to people, but to endurance. He knew his journey was never just his own. It belonged to everyone who had watched, suffered, and learned. So, my children, this is how the story rests. A wicked landlord tried to block success and instead uncovered truth. A quiet tenant endured and rose without hatred. Remember this well. Power built on fear will always fall, but patience builds houses that storms respect. When you stand between cruelty and courage, choose courage. The ground is always watching.